The chill in the air that autumn evening in Willow Creek was sharp, the kind that promised a long, hard winter. It was the night my husband, Arthur, brought home a gift that would unravel our entire life. Arthur, an architect known for his meticulous designs, walked through the door at precisely 6:30 p.m., his briefcase in one hand, a small, elegant box in the other. He placed it on the kitchen island, the soft glow of the under-cabinet lighting catching the silver ribbon. "For you, Clara," he said, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. "A little something to help with your energy. You've seemed a bit tired lately." I stared at the box. Inside, nestled on tissue paper, was a jar of artisanal herbal tea blend, marketed for vitality and well-being. It was a premium brand, one I'd admired in boutique shops but never bought. The jar itself was sleek, dark glass, with a minimalist label in elegant script. The scent, even through the sealed lid, was subtly herbaceous, a mix of earthy notes and a faint, sweet spice. "Arthur, this is unexpected," I managed, my brow furrowing slightly. He hadn't bought me a gift in years, not even for our anniversary. Our marriage had become a quiet arrangement, two parallel lives under one roof. Now, this expensive, thoughtful gesture felt off. It was like a perfectly crafted stage prop, beautiful but somehow hollow. "Just trying to be a good husband," he replied, his eyes not quite meeting mine. He moved with deliberate slowness, pouring himself a glass of water from the filtered tap, his back to me for a moment, before retreating to his study. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone with the gleaming jar and a silence that felt heavier than usual. The tea blend was a fine, pale green powder, fragrant with notes of ginger and ginseng. The label promised a gentle boost, improved focus, and a sense of calm. But as I held it, the cool glass pressing against my palm, a strange unease settled in my stomach. My intuition, honed over years as a botanical illustrator, a profession that taught me to observe every detail, screamed that something was wrong. This gift, delivered with forced sincerity and averted eyes, felt like a carefully constructed illusion, a beautiful facade hiding something rotten beneath. The air in the kitchen, usually comforting with the lingering scent of dinner, now felt thin, almost metallic. The next morning, the first rays of dawn were just painting the kitchen in soft gold when I came down. Arthur was already there, a rare occurrence, meticulously wiping down the granite countertops. He watched as I filled the kettle, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that made the hairs on my arms prickle. "Did you try the tea?" he asked, his voice even, but with an underlying current I couldn't quite decipher. "Not yet," I said, reaching for a mug, trying to project an air of normalcy I didn't feel. "I thought I'd have it with breakfast." He nodded, a barely perceptible movement, but his eyes remained on me, tracking my every move. It felt less like a husband observing his wife, and more like a predator watching its prey. I opened the jar, the herbal scent filling the air, a little stronger now, and measured a scoop into my mug. As I poured the hot water, the steam rising in a delicate plume, a sudden, vivid memory flashed through my mind. A severe allergic reaction to a common herb years ago, one that had landed me in the emergency room with anaphylactic shock. My doctor had given me a long list of botanicals to avoid, a list I had committed to memory, and one of the main ingredients in this blend, a rare root extract called Radix aconiti, was unequivocally on that list. I lowered the mug, my hand trembling slightly, the ceramic warm against my fingers. The steam curled around my face, carrying the scent of potential danger. "Actually," I said, forcing a casual tone, a lightness I didn't feel, "I think I'll save this for later. I'm craving coffee this morning." The lie felt thick and clumsy on my tongue. Arthur's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a muscle clenching and releasing just beneath his skin. His eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second, a flash of something cold and sharp. "Fine," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth. He turned abruptly, grabbed his briefcase, and left for work a few minutes later, the door clicking shut with a finality that echoed in the silent, suddenly cavernous house. I stood there, mug in hand, the herbal aroma now cloying, and then poured the steaming liquid down the drain, watching it swirl away, taking with it a growing sense of dread. I washed the mug meticulously, scrubbing away any lingering trace of the tea, as if I could wash away the unsettling feeling it had left behind. My mind raced. Why had he bought me something I was allergic to? Did he know? Or was this a terrifying coincidence? A cruel twist of fate? The questions spun in my head, each one more chilling than the last. Over the next few weeks, the ritual continued, a silent, macabre dance between us. Every morning, Arthur would watch, a strange, unreadable expression on his face, as I prepared the tea. His presence was a heavy weight in the kitchen, his silence more unnerving than any words. I'd scoop the powder, stir it, the spoon clinking softly against the ceramic, and then, when his back was turned or he'd left for work, I'd pour it down the drain, a small act of rebellion and self-preservation. The jar sat on the kitchen counter, a silent testament to my daily performance, a constant, gleaming reminder of the insidious game we were playing. I told myself I was being paranoid, that this was just a thoughtful, if misguided gesture from a distant husband trying to reconnect. But the unease grew, a cold knot in my stomach that tightened with each passing day, each averted glance, each overly solicitous question. His questions about my schedule became more frequent. His concern felt less like care and more like surveillance, a subtle tightening of the net around me. He'd ask about my plans for the day, who I was meeting, where I was going, always with that smooth, almost too smooth voice. My best friend, Lena, a sharp-witted lawyer, noticed my distraction during our weekly coffee dates at the Daily Grind. The aroma of roasted beans and warm pastries usually brought me comfort, but now even that felt muted. "You're miles away, Clara," she'd said, stirring her latte, her keen eyes observing me over the rim of her mug. "What's going on? You look like you're carrying the weight of the world." I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. Then, the dam finally breaking, I told her about the tea, the allergy, Arthur's strange behavior, the growing sense of dread. Lena listened, her expression growing serious, the usual playful glint in her eyes replaced by a focused intensity. She set her mug down with a soft thud. "Clara," she said slowly, her voice low and deliberate, "marine collagen is one thing, a specific herbal blend that you're allergic to, given by a husband who's suddenly thoughtful after years of neglect? That's concerning, highly concerning." Her words echoed my own unspoken fears, giving them a terrifying legitimacy. The knot in my stomach tightened further. What I didn't know was that our 10-year-old son, Leo, a quiet, observant boy with a vivid imagination, was about to uncover something that would shatter my carefully constructed denial and plunge me into a nightmare far darker than I could have imagined. Leo had a habit of playing in the hidden nooks of our old Victorian house. That morning, he was tucked away in the pantry, building a fort out of cereal boxes and old blankets, a flashlight clutched in his hand. The pantry door was ajar, just enough for him to see a sliver of the kitchen, a narrow vertical slit of light and movement. He heard his father's footsteps, not the usual measured tread, but hurried, almost furtive, a soft scuffing sound on the hardwood floor. Through the crack, Leo watched Arthur enter the kitchen, not to make coffee, not to grab a snack, not for any of his usual morning routines. He went straight to the counter where the tea jar sat, a silent sentinel. Leo saw his father open the jar, the faint click of the lid audible even from his hiding spot. Then, Arthur pulled a small, clear plastic bag from his pocket, the kind used for jewelry. Inside, there was a fine, white powder, almost luminous in the morning light. Arthur carefully, almost ritualistically, added a pinch of the white powder to the herbal tea blend, his movements precise and deliberate. He used a small silver spoon he'd apparently brought with him, stirring the contents of the jar slowly, thoroughly, until the white powder seemed to vanish into the green blend. He then replaced the lid, wiped the spoon clean with a paper towel he'd produced from another pocket, and put the plastic bag and the spoon back into his pocket, all with an economy of motion that spoke of practice. His face, visible in profile, was a blank mask, devoid of any emotion. Leo, hidden among the boxes, felt a cold dread creep over him, a primal fear that tightened his small chest. He didn't understand what he was seeing. Not fully, but he knew, with the infallible instinct of a child, that it was wrong. Very wrong. The air in the pantry suddenly felt thick, suffocating. Later that day, after Arthur had left for work, the house settling into its usual afternoon quiet, Leo found me in my studio, meticulously illustrating a rare orchid. He tugged at my sleeve, his small face pale, his eyes wide and clouded with a fear I hadn't seen in them before. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible, a fragile thread of sound. "I need to show you something." He led me to the kitchen, his eyes darting nervously to the tea jar, then back to me, as if seeking reassurance. "Dad, he put something in your tea. From a little bag." My heart seized in my chest, a cold, sharp pain. The cold knot in my stomach turned to ice, spreading through my veins. "What did it look like, sweetie?" I asked, my voice strained, barely a whisper itself. "White powder," he said, his voice a little stronger now, as if the act of telling was a release. He stirred it in. The world tilted, the vibrant colors of my studio fading to a dull gray. My carefully constructed denial shattered into a million pieces. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't a coincidence. This was deliberate. This was malice. I gripped Leo's hand, his small fingers cold in mine, my mind racing, a frantic scramble for answers, for a way out. "Leo," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, to project a calm I didn't feel. "This is very important. Can you pretend this never happened, just for a little while, especially around Dad? It's our secret, okay?" He nodded, his eyes wide and scared, but with a flicker of understanding. I knew then that I had to act, and I had to act fast, before it was too late. The silence of the house, once comforting, now felt menacing, filled with unspoken threats. The next morning, I went through the motions again. A puppet on strings, my movements stiff and unnatural. Arthur watched, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, a subtle triumph perhaps, or just the cold calculation of a predator. I scooped the tea, stirred it, the spoon feeling heavy in my hand, and then, when he left for work, the door clicking shut with its usual finality, I carefully poured the contents into a small, sealed container, a sterile sample jar I usually used for botanical specimens. I labeled it with the date and time, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I tucked it away in a hidden compartment in my studio, a place only I knew about. Then, I called Lena, my voice tight with a fear I hadn't known I was capable of, a raw, primal terror. "I need your help," I said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Arthur is trying to poison me. Leo saw him." Lena, ever pragmatic, didn't waste a second on shock or disbelief. Her legal mind immediately shifted into crisis mode. She connected me with a private forensic lab, discreet and efficient, known for handling sensitive cases. I drove the sample there myself, my heart pounding with every mile, the sealed container feeling like a ticking bomb in the passenger seat. 2 days later, the results came back. The lab technician, a woman with kind eyes but a somber demeanor, explained it to me over a secure video call. The tea blend contained a potent, slow-acting neurotoxin designed to mimic the symptoms of a degenerative neurological disease, the kind that would slowly, subtly, erode my cognitive functions, my motor skills, my very essence, until my death would be attributed to natural causes, a tragic, inexplicable decline. The dosage was small, designed for prolonged exposure, to avoid immediate suspicion, to allow the poison to accumulate silently in my system. Radix aconiti would have exacerbated the effects, speeding up the process, making me more vulnerable, more quickly. My allergy, my body's natural defense, had inadvertently saved my life, forcing me to avoid the initial doses. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. Arthur, my husband of 15 years, the father of my son, was systematically trying to murder me. The coldness, the distance, the sudden gift, it all clicked into place, a horrifying mosaic of betrayal, each piece fitting perfectly into a picture of calculated evil. But why? The question screamed in my mind, a desperate, echoing cry. Lena, with her legal mind working at lightning speed, began to dig. Within days, she uncovered a web of financial deceit so intricate it made my head spin. Arthur was deeply in debt, his architectural firm on the brink of bankruptcy after a series of failed investments and reckless spending. He had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on me, with a forged signature, just 6 months prior. The payout, a staggering sum, would have solved all his problems, cleared his debts, and allowed him to start fresh. He was banking on my death appearing natural, a tragic consequence of an undiagnosed illness, leaving him free and wealthy. The audacity of it, the cold-blooded calculation, was almost unfathomable. The evidence mounted, the lab report, Leo's innocent but damning testimony, the forged insurance policy. But I needed more. I needed to catch him in the act, or at least prove his intent beyond a shadow of a doubt, something irrefutable for a jury. Lena suggested a hidden camera. It felt invasive, a violation of the last vestiges of our shared life, a final, painful intrusion into the intimacy of our home, but I knew it was necessary. We installed a tiny camera in the kitchen, disguised as a smoke detector, its lens strategically focused on the counter where the tea jar sat, a silent, unblinking eye. For 3 agonizing days, I continued the charade, pretending to drink the poisoned tea, my stomach churning with every swallow, every forced smile. Arthur maintained his watchful vigil, his eyes betraying nothing, a perfect poker face. The tension in the house was a palpable thing, a suffocating blanket. Then, on the 4th morning, the camera captured it. Arthur, believing I was out for my morning walk, a routine I had carefully established, entered the kitchen. He moved with the same furtive precision Leo had described. He opened the jar, took out the small plastic bag, and carefully added another pinch of the white powder to the tea blend. He stirred it, his face devoid of emotion, a chilling mask of calculated intent. The footage was undeniable, a silent, damning confession. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, Lena and I went to the police. Detective Miller, a seasoned officer with a weary but kind face, listened patiently as I laid out the horrifying narrative, my voice trembling but resolute. He watched the video footage, his expression hardening with each passing second, a grim understanding dawning in his eyes. "Mrs. Thorne," he said, his voice grave, the weight of his words settling heavily in the room. "This is a strong case. We'll need to move quickly." Arthur was scheduled to fly to a conference in Seattle that afternoon. The plan was simple: let him board the plane, then intercept him upon arrival. They wanted to catch him off guard, before he could dispose of any evidence or concoct an alibi. I was to pretend to drop him off at the airport, just like any other business trip, maintaining the illusion of our normal, if strained, life. The deception felt like a heavy cloak, suffocating me. The drive to the airport was surreal, a journey through a landscape of lies. Arthur chatted about his upcoming conference, his voice light and confident. I nodded, smiled, played the part of the devoted wife, my heart a leaden weight in my chest, all the while knowing that in a few hours, his carefully constructed world would come crashing down. Leo, sensing the tension, the unspoken currents in the car, was unusually quiet in the back seat, his small face pressed against the window. As Arthur retrieved his luggage from the trunk, a sleek carry-on and a laptop bag, he turned to me, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. "Take care, Clara," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "I'll call you when I land." He leaned in, a fleeting kiss brushing my cheek, a gesture that now felt like a viper's touch. I watched him walk into the terminal, a figure of calm deception, blending seamlessly into the stream of travelers, and then drove away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white, my jaw aching from the effort of maintaining my composure. The air in the car felt thick with the residue of his lies. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls and anxious waiting, each minute stretching into an eternity. I paced my studio, unable to focus on anything, the silence of the house amplifying my racing thoughts. Detective Miller called me just as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "He's in custody, Mrs. Thorne," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. They found the plastic bag with the powder in his carry-on, tucked into a false bottom. And his phone, well, his phone just confessed for him. I frowned, a knot of confusion tightening in my chest. His phone? What do you mean? Yes, Miller explained, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. He had a message scheduled to auto-send tomorrow morning to his mistress, a woman named Bethany, who also happens to be his insurance agent. The message read, "It's done. Police ruled it natural causes. Life insurance claim filed. No investigation. Meet me at the usual place Friday to celebrate." He'd set it to send 24 hours after his flight landed, assuming you'd be gone by then. The audacity, the chilling precision of his plan, the casual cruelty of it all, left me breathless. He had even planned his celebration, a toast to my demise with the woman who helped him forge the policy. The message, sent from his own device, scheduled in advance, was irrefutable proof of his intent, a digital smoking gun. It was his confession, in his own words, completely unprompted by police questioning, a final, damning piece of evidence. The betrayal was so complete, so utterly cold-blooded, it felt like a physical assault. Arthur was charged with attempted murder and multiple counts of fraud. The trial was swift, the evidence overwhelming, a mountain of irrefutable facts. Leo's testimony, though difficult for him, delivered with a child's simple honesty, was crucial. The video footage, played for the jury, silenced the courtroom. The lab results, the forged insurance policy, and especially the auto-sent message from his phone. It all painted a damning picture of a man consumed by greed and devoid of conscience. Arthur was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, his career and reputation shattered, his meticulously designed life collapsing around him. The aftermath was a long, painful process of healing and rebuilding, a slow, arduous climb out of the abyss. The divorce was finalized, granting me full custody of Leo and severing all ties with Arthur, a clean break from the toxic past. The house, once a symbol of our shared life, now felt tainted, haunted by the shadows of betrayal. I sold it and bought a small cottage in Willow Creek, a place with a sprawling garden where I could lose myself in my botanical illustrations, finding solace in the quiet beauty of nature. The cottage, with its sun-drenched rooms and the scent of earth and growing things, felt like a fresh start, a place where we could breathe again. Leo struggled initially, the trauma of his father's betrayal leaving deep scars, a quiet wariness in his eyes. But with therapy and my unwavering support, he slowly began to heal. He found solace in nature, in helping me tend the garden, in drawing the vibrant flowers and plants that filled our new home. We spent hours together, digging in the soil, planting seeds, watching them grow, a tangible symbol of our own resilience. One crisp autumn morning, a year after everything had unraveled, the air carrying the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke, Leo came into the kitchen as I was preparing breakfast. He watched me pour milk into his cereal bowl, his eyes fixed on my hands, a silent, almost imperceptible tension in his small frame. For months, he had been wary of anything I prepared, a silent fear lingering in his gaze, a ghost of the past. "You watched me pour it," I said softly, my voice gentle, a quiet invitation to trust, to let go of the fear. Leo looked at the bowl, then at me, his brow furrowed in thought. His jaw worked, a silent conversation happening within him, a battle between lingering doubt and nascent trust. Then, slowly, he picked up the spoon, one bite, then another, the crunch of cereal echoing softly in the quiet kitchen. "It's good, Mom," he said, a small, genuine smile gracing his lips, a light returning to his eyes. It was a tiny moment, almost imperceptible to an outsider, but for us, it was everything. It was a sign of trust, of healing, of a future being rebuilt, one spoonful at a time, one small act of faith. My studio in the cottage, a sun-drenched space overlooking the garden, became my sanctuary, a place of creation and quiet reflection. On the easel, I began a new series of illustrations, not of delicate orchids or vibrant roses, but of resilient plants, those that thrived in harsh conditions, that found ways to survive and bloom despite adversity. The tenacious dandelion pushing through concrete, the desert cactus blooming in arid lands, the hardy fern unfurling in the shade of ancient trees. It was a metaphor for my own journey, for Leo's, for the strength we had found in the face of betrayal, a testament to the enduring power of life. I learned that the people closest to you can sometimes become the greatest danger, that darkness can lurk in the most familiar of places. But I also learned that your instinct to survive is stronger than any poison, any betrayal. I had rationalized Arthur's behavior for too long, dismissed my own gut feelings because I couldn't imagine that someone I loved, someone I had built a life with, could harbor such darkness, such murderous intent. But my body, my very allergy, had given me the first warning, a biological alarm bell, and Leo, with his innocent eyes and unwavering honesty, had given me the final, undeniable proof. Trust your gut when something feels wrong, even if you can't name what it is yet, especially when it comes from someone you love, someone you are supposed to trust implicitly. The lesson I learned is that betrayal doesn't excuse giving up on yourself. It teaches you who you really are, what you are capable of enduring, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is to protect yourself and those you cherish, even if it means confronting the darkest truths, even if it means tearing down the life you thought you had. My future, our future, was no longer defined by the shadows of the past, but by the vibrant, resilient life we were building, one brushstroke, one bloom, one trusting smile at a time. The garden outside my window, bursting with life, was a constant reminder that even after the harshest winter, spring always returns. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.